G'day everyone and welcome back to this Share Cafe Hidden Gems webinar. Thank you for your time. We've got a record crowd here today. Today we're discussing mining technology, gold, copper, and of course lithium. First up, we're going to do things a little bit differently today, and we're starting with a Q&A session only with Lake Resources, and then we'll follow up with some company presentations. So if you want to ask some questions, please type them in the box provided, the same for all our presenting companies. So let's make a start with Lake Resources. We welcome Executive Chairman, Mr. Stu Crowe from Lake. Stu, thanks for your time. It's been an incredible sequence of events over the last couple of days. I hope you're holding up okay. I'm sure your phone has been ringing off the hook, and we appreciate your time, given it's kind of late in New York there. Now, out of interest, Steve Promnitz has confirmed the sale of his shares to us. They were sold in one line to an institution, so let's put that to bed. Now, Stu, let's talk about the Lake announcement to the ASX on Monday that kind of shocked the market before we dive a little bit deeper into some questions around Kachi. And of course, the underlying theme here is kind of at the moment is why would founding managing director resign post the company really reaching an incredible milestone of being in the ASX 200? So, Stu, can you give us some insights into the resignation from the managing director? Was it unexpected? Could it have been handled better, given kind of the announcement to the ASX was headlined around your appointment as the executive chairman rather than the CEO's departure, which was kind of obviously price-sensitive news. So, Stu, over to you.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks for the opportunity to sort of clear the air here. Lake Resources has been very busy over the last 6 years from a company that started off with a very, very small market cap and has moved through to where we were an entrant into the ASX 200 on Monday. We've had the same board in place pretty much the whole way through, and Steve Promnitz was the founding managing director and CEO and did an exceptional job in project generation and putting these assets together. We were very early into Argentina after the election of the Macri government, and Steve did an exceptional job putting together one of the biggest land holdings of any listed company at the time, notwithstanding recent mergers. So 6 months ago, as a board, we started talking about a transition, because the life cycle of these, if you're fortunate enough to be an explorer that looks like it's going to go the distance and move into production, it's highly unlikely that you have the skill sets at the board level that will carry you through into production and running a very large business. So we started talking about a transition and looking at, and also as part of our continuing investigation into looking at uplisting the company in the US capital markets on a major exchange, either NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. And then 4 months ago, we commenced a search process, and it was a global search, and that has nearly come to its conclusion. Part of the transition, obviously, we were looking to move Steve into an executive role in another area and bring in people that have had experience in managing and delivering projects of this scale. So it became like a natural thing to do. Obviously, I can't speak for Steve, and I wouldn't attempt to, but obviously his actions would suggest that he wasn't prepared to consider what was proposed, and sadly he left the company. He emailed me on Friday to say that he had resigned as managing director and as director of all other subsidiaries of the company with immediate effect. And so, given that, I was preparing to leave for New York, because we're in the final stages of shortlisting candidates for a CEO role, as well as non-executive directors and other executive positions within the company as we move towards the setting up an office here in the US. And so that's where the announcement came from on Monday. Obviously, as it's turned out, there was some confusion around that and the reasons behind it. It's very hard in those sort of announcements to build a story around as to why and who said what and who did what. But it was a factual released to the exchange and outlined not only the resignation of Steve, but also the move to create a corporate office in the US.
And Stu, was there any plans to kind of have Steve work through a notice period? I mean, the shock was that his departure was immediate. Was there a plan to offer him another role within LAC?
Yeah, there was, and we were negotiating that at the time. So that's why it came as such a surprise to receive his email on Friday.
And I suppose, with the concern now with the departure of the CEO is, I've got a couple of questions here. Who's going to lead the project to completion now? How long before the board appoints a new CEO? And do you foresee any delays in project execution as a result of this? Okay,
well, we have a COO, Gautam Primslu, who's based in Argentina. He's tasked solely to deliver the Kachi project. There's currently 300 people, including the team finalising the construction of the demonstration plant on site in Argentina. So he has been building out that team aggressively over the last 12 months, and that hasn't been slowed in any way. And obviously, we've just come out of COVID. So for all those years, we've had people on the ground in Argentina that haven't had direct access to the CEO. So they've done a really good job. We've had a strong team, and it's getting stronger by the day. We're continually bringing people into that team as we gain some momentum on delivering this project. So yeah, we don't see any issues with not having that CEO currently. Obviously, that team is overseen by the board, and part of this process of recruitment is to strengthen that board and have people who have had significant experience in South America in delivering major projects.
And sorry, is there a timeline for the new CEO?
We will we'll have a short list of applicants. That's one of the reasons I was in New York. I'm actually in Washington at the Benchmark Minerals Conference now. We'll come down to it looks like we'll have a short list of 4 really good candidates for the CEO role, I would suggest by the end of next week, early July, and subject to notice periods, obviously, but we would be hopeful we'll make an announcement pretty shortly after having second round interviews and negotiating position.
And Stu, investors are keen to go and get an update on the Lilac demonstration plant, also at Kachi. And of course, shareholders are always worried that, when you lose a CEO and he sells his shares, that there may be some technical issues. So can you talk through when do you expect the commissioning of the plant to start with?
Yeah, just on the technical issues, and there's been some scuttlebutt in the market about, Steve resigned, sold all his shares because the Lilac process doesn't work. Well, we've got 4.5 years of data and test work that's been done at bench scale and pilot scale. During the pandemic, we shipped brine to California and ran the pilot plant. The demonstration plant is in Argentina. It's currently in a warehouse in Salta. It'll be moved to site when the facility is completed. The timeline on that is the 15th of July. And there will be a team from Lilac sent on the ground in Argentina in early July. And that will be between 8 and 12 people will be on site from Lilac. And just on the concept of the process not working, I don't know if you're following the Bolivian situation, but the Bolivian government has just shortlisted from 22 contenders down to 6 participants to work on the Salar de Uyuni there. And Lilac's one of those 6 people. You've got 4 from China, 1 from Russia, and Lilac being the only representative of the USA. So we're very happy to see that. And hopefully that will sort of allay some of the fears that this technology doesn't work. And, quite frankly, we wouldn't be building the demonstration plant if we didn't think it did work. And I'm pretty sure Lilac wouldn't be bothering sending their people to site, particularly given their earning into the project. Obviously, they earn 10% of this project if they deliver product at spec, which is 99.95%, which is significantly higher than 99.5%, which is considered the current standard technical grade product or battery quality product. So they've got a lot on the line here, and they're taking it very seriously, as are we. And both companies, Lilac and Lake, have been working extensively with Hatch on this project, and we're very comfortable with the data set that we have, and confident that it will work extremely well.
And once commissioned, how long will it need to operate before you're producing lithium chloride?
Well, we'll do a dry commissioning and then a wet commissioning, and then we'll start generating lithium chloride concentrate immediately after that. So all in all, looks like we're going to produce 120,000 litres of concentrate over 3 months. So we would expect that certainly within, by the end of August, we would start to be collecting the concentrate. And then that concentrate will then be shipped to Hazen in Colorado that we've used before, and they will then convert that into lithium carbonate.
And so how long will it take to convert this kind of lithium chloride into high purity, battery quality lithium carbonate for your off-takers and qualification?
Yeah, they have a pilot plant ready to go there to the conversion of the concentrate. So when we used them last time, that was a test work, and that took 5 or 6 weeks to get the results. I don't think it'll take that much this time. I would expect it would be somewhere around 3 weeks or so.
And Stu, what are your conversations been like with your kind of, your partners, your offtake partners, your investors, in regards to conversations around Steve and how the process will be managed, given Steve's not in place at the moment?
The conversation's been fine. It's business as usual. We are moving ahead. We are bringing in a more experienced team to lead this project across a whole range of positions, and the conversations are ongoing. For example, our financing with the export credit agencies, we've got two lead consultants there, SD Capital and GKB Ventures. They've been in constant contact. We've had meetings with JP Morgan and Citi, who we appointed as joint lead managers only a week ago. We announced that the week, whenever that was, I think it was Tuesday last week. Those conversations are fine. I'll be meeting those guys in London the week after next, and have ongoing discussions there. Peter Nielsen, our CFO, has been active in those discussions as well, so he will be working with us in bringing those finance packages along as we progress things.
And of course, you've got the Ford Memorandum of Understanding, and when it was announced, it was suggested they may seek to acquire equity in Lake, and we kind of make the observation there's no major institutional shareholder on the Lake register. So given where the price is, can you talk to these sort of conversations that may open up as a result of where the share price is at the moment?
Vaguely, because that's subject to a non-binding MOU, obviously. But in terms of, we don't have major institutions on our register. We're now in the ASX 200 and do have institutions building positions on the register, which we haven't had for some time. To date, there's no one gone substantial, but we do have institutional presence on the register. The discussions with potential off-takers have been ongoing, and the interest is high. I guess to a point, I would have hoped we might have had something finalised by now or gone to a slightly firmer state. But those in this market, there's been a lot of activity. Just in the last 2 days, we've seen 2 significant investments in lithium companies, one this morning with Stellantis and Vulcan, and yesterday we saw a subsidiary of Exxon take a position in E3 Metals in Canada. So, and I'm at the Benchmark conference this week, and I have to tell you, the interest in lithium and the demand projections and the concern around supply is intensifying. And I think you'll find we will progress these offtake discussions, and I would hope to be able to say something further on that within a month.
Sure, and obviously with your inclusion in the ASX 200, you have index funds buying stock, and then they're lending out the stock, and the timing of which has been unfortunate, because you're obviously subject here to a short selling attack, I'd suggest, by some hedge funds. What are your thoughts on that?
That's their risk. We are progressing these projects where we're on the verge of appointing someone to spearhead and increase activity on our 3 other projects and bring them up the curve towards PFS and potentially look at bringing them into production very quickly after Kachi. We will have significant news flow. As I said, the demonstration plant should start being commissioned mid-July. With product coming out of that, I would expect that's a really fairly reasonable catalyst for this share price if we start announcing that did deliver spec, which is our expectation. We've got drilling going on at Olaroz. We're drilling our 2nd hole at Olaroz, where we're testing brines as we're drilling. There is a lot going on, and I think also there's a risk if you're short that when we announce some of these positions, new additions to the board and new CEO, I think the market will be well impressed.
And you mentioned in your sorry, Stu.
No, you're right.
You mentioned in your recent announcement that kind of bringing other projects online is also a key focus. Kind of what stage are these at, and is there an active strategy in place to progress them? Yeah,
absolutely, there is. As I just said, we're about to appoint someone to spearhead that progress and that group of assets. I suspect we've already committed $15 million to that. I suspect we will increase that and look at bringing all those projects on in parallel rather than doing them one at a time. And the person we're bringing on has real experience in project delivery, and he's sort of itching to get on with it there. So there will be more news on that as well. And the reason being, we are definitely going into a supply deficit in the lithium sector. And we have an opportunity because you can bring these projects on faster than the traditional methods. And some of the traditional and the incumbents, some of them are going to have issues with their expansion plans given regional issues. And there's also problems with water security and all types of things. So we're very confident. We've got a sustainability report in final draft that will be released in the not too distant future that outlines our water usage, carbon footprint, and a whole range of other interesting data points. And I think the market will be very impressed when they see things like our water usage, particularly in the light of some of the scuttlebutt that's been thrown around as we've moved this project forward.
There's certainly been lots of questions coming through on that, Steve. There's a lot of questions here. You've obviously announced plans to move operations to the US to better align yourselves with US off-takers and banks. Does this and the expansion strategy kind of compete for resources in the short to medium term?
Financial resources or personal?
Yeah, well, probably both in this sort of market.
No, to be honest, we've got $160 million in the bank. We have an ability to raise funds as and when we need them. The reason for doing this is we've got Hatch in Toronto with some guys working out of the San Diego office. In the West Coast, we've got our technology partner Lilac. On the East Coast, we've got financiers and a potential uplisting in the US markets. And then we're looking at an office in Miami, which is a well-known destination for mining companies. South American speaking recruitment would be easy there. And it's a good place for people to live and educate children if we have to move people to that office. And there's direct flights. American Airlines hubs out of Miami, and there's direct flights to Buenos Aires regularly. It's an 8-hour flight. It leaves at night and lands there at 6 in the morning and goes straight to the office. And that avoids this horrendous issue of having executives flying all over the world on long-haul flights, having to be away from home for 2 to 3 weeks at a time as a minimum. So it's a whole, just centralising everyone in a time zone where we can be far more efficient. So that was the reason behind it, and the impact on resources will be minimal.
Understood, Stuart. And we've probably got time for one last word from yourself, given the panic in the market and what we've seen over the last couple of days in particular. What are the key catalysts that investors should focus on for the long term?
Sure. Well, deficit in the lithium market, opportunity to deliver 50,000 tonnes of high purity product. We've got catalysts coming with the demonstration plant, potentially with offtake agreements and discussions. And we've had ongoing interest in people participating in offtake if there's any changes to the current arrangements. Drilling success at Olaroz. We're testing brines and awaiting assays on the first hole at Olaroz. We'll be releasing that at some point. New appointments. the quality and the caliber of these people that we're looking to shortlist are nothing short of exceptional. And I think the market will be very impressed when they see the new look lake as we take this project towards development. So really exciting times. It's disappointing the way the market's reacted to the news. The impact the impact of shorts and the scuttlebutt has rattled the cage of not so savvy retail investors, unfortunately. So the professional market has a real impact this week, but hopefully we can turn that around with some positive news flow in the next little while.
Thanks, Stu. I appreciate your time. I know it's late there in New York. I hope this presentation has cleared up a lot of those issues for shareholders and potential new investors. There's a lot more questions. I'll send them through to you over the weekend. Thanks for your time.
Good on you. Thanks very much, Jim. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Okay, next up we have SensOre, ASX code S3N. Market cap around $24 million, 1 year return down around 57%. The company aims to become a top performing minerals targeting company in the world through exploration that combines AI technology, big data, and vast geoscientific expertise. We have with us Richard Taylor, who is the CEO. Richard, thanks for your time. Over to you.
Thanks, Tim, and good to be back here with Shack Cafe to give a bit of an update on what we've been doing post IPO in February. A bit like everyone, I guess we listed in February at a pretty inopportune time, and have been riding the influence of what's been happening on small caps over the last little period. But this is a good chance to talk about our technology and about our exploration pipeline. We haven't been sitting on our hands since we listed. We've had 3 rigs on drilling some of our projects, some of our targets that have been generated from the artificial intelligence that we use to apply to our technology. We have been out there with our clients, working very hard with Deutsche Rohstoff and Prime Lithium, 2 groups that have been supporting us not only as shareholders and clients, looking at new ways to open up new lithium prospects in Western Australia. And also generating projects with one of our clients, Barton Gold in South Australia, who've been very excited about the new thinking we've brought to prospectivity for gold and copper in a mature exploration area. But a lot of our technology, and I will dwell on that a bit today. If I can go to the next slide. Yep, and the next slide. So you can see where we're tightly held. We've got good support from many of our clients. I mentioned Deutsche Rohstoff and Prime Lithium as a client, but DGO now taken over by Gold Road, and BHP Ventures are in there. We do think that once the market's paying attention to us, the tightly held structure will mean that our good news flow that we have coming up from all those exploration holes that we've drilled over the last 3 months, and we'll be releasing over the next quarter and next 3 or 4 months will get a lot of attention in the market. We're sitting on a lot of cash at the moment as well, so we won't be going back anytime soon. It gives us an opportunity to be able to process those results and increase the revenue flow we're getting from our client base on the technology side. For those who are new to the story, we do combine a technology where we generate cash. We generated 2 million in our first calendar year, and then looking to improve upon that as we go forward with the clients that we've generated. If I can go to the next slide. I guess SensOre is still looking at these big thematics that are coming through, particularly on battery and critical minerals. We know that we're going to have to do things differently to be able to supply the demands for copper, lithium, nickel, and cobalt. The companies that work with us are looking for those new ideas. We think there's a lot more to be discovered in Australia, particularly WA, South Australia, and Queensland. We think the opportunity exists in near mine environments undercover where people have found it difficult to target before by using new data and approaches. We're also looking at critical mineral supply, reorientation of global supply chains to more friendly jurisdictions. I've been over in the US for PDAC and marketing in North America. There's a lot of appetite there. There's a lot of funding for new approaches and for exploration activity and technologies like ours. I've seen the appetite for it in the PDAC arena with some of the big players such as Sequent and Index, really generating significant revenue flows from the majors and mid-tiers and the new generation of companies that have just listed, looking for that edge in the exploration space. Go on, go to the next slide. I mentioned before about our technology, and it's important to understand that our approach is big data. It is about organising all of Western Australia's available geoscience information and making it available to our clients, and being able to provide targeting services to them. When we generate targets and reveal the information that we have over people's area, our clients are generally amazed. They want to get access to it. They want to look at those new interps. I mentioned Barton Gold before, but we opened up new areas of prospectivity within their tenement package that they hadn't considered. And when they reviewed that information, they saw it as an exciting opportunity to be able to target on those prospects. We're going into a second phase of work with them, where we about just shy of $500,000 worth of work. We'll be working with them and generating a new portfolio of projects and increased detail within that data set. We also, when we see opportunities within the data in areas that we're opening up that may not have been overlooked or unloved, we do pick up those assets. We do some work on them. We either farm them out or work with others to be able to explore those projects. And we do have our 100% owned tenements ourselves that we pursue when we see diamonds or potential upside within that group. If I can go to the next slide. Just quickly on the technology, what it is using all the advances in machine learning to be able to extract written information from reports, from maps, turn that into quantitative layers, be able to understand, reprocess geophysics, gravity, magnetics, be able to fuse those data sets with the geology, be able to train the computer to be able to take large quantitative data sets of geochemical surface information and drilling data sets and be able to build up what is a massive virtual body, full body scan of Western Australia, in looking at it in 2,500 different dimensions and the relationships between each of those areas and terrains. If I can go to the next slide. When we work out what a deposit looks like, what the fingerprint of a gold system and lithium system or nickel prospect, then we set our algorithms loose on our data cube, which is that massive scan of the continent, and we look for patterns within that data. One of the exciting things we're doing at the moment is putting all of that information on a cloud-based system. Currently, our technology works on a bespoke approach where we have the internal systems and within our Perth Technology Hub. Now we're putting on a cloud where our clients are going to be able to log in. They're going to be able to look at all of the different prospectivity layers, the predictions of targets within their areas, upload their own information, be able to manipulate and work with some of the data sets in 2 and 3D to be able to provide a one-stop shop for all data and targeting activities. And it's been really well received from our clients, but also from the general geologist and investor community to be able to access and interrogate data that they would never be able to have access to previously, or have the time to be able to clean, ingest and scrub all of that data for errors, which our system has been able to do. If I can go to the next slide. We just released some of our prospectivity maps to clients. These are images of the subsurface of Western Australia for the key commodities. We've had a lot of uptake from gold, nickel, lithium and copper. This is obviously a very high zoom out of what you get, but working with clients to be able to image underneath sediment, underneath cover, that's been very difficult to be able to do, and with high precision. It's a learning system as well. So when clients collect more data, we can feed that back in as an opportunity to improve the predictive capacity of the system. And we know that it'll get better and better as we go forward. If I can go to the next slide. We've had recently been drilling some of our nickel and base metal projects, Munera out in the Nullarbor, Aurelia to the north, which is a joint venture with Chalice Mines. It's one of their large geophysical exploration targets. SensOre can earn up to 70% of the Aurelia project. We drilled the Munera project with WA government funding as well as funding from SensOre, and we've just picked up 2 new prospects, Scorpion and Jenkins, that are informed by the work we've done on nickel targeting with some of the majors. These are pretty exciting projects, big projects with lots of opportunity for upside, and we're looking forward to being able to talk about the results once we get assays. Like many companies, we've been affected by assay turnaround times in Perth and the boom in exploration that's been undertaken over the last few quarters. If I can go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about our lithium targeting. I think this is a pretty exciting use of the technology where we've gone out and trawled through our information for looking for pegmatites, gone through some of the biggest geochemical databases across the state we've ever seen, to be able to rank fertility of lithium pegmatites to come up with a lithium pegmatite fertility index, and be able to recognize opportunities on open ground. Believe it or not, they still exist when you've got this access to this technology, and pursuing joint ventures with those projects. We will keep a 30% equity stake within that, funded by our own exploration and technology revenues. And we stand to earn $1 million in revenue and 2.8 million in revenue in contributions to exploration from Deutsche Rostoff and their Prime Lithium subsidiary out of Germany. Very supportive, very keen to get into what they see as an opportunity to be able to corner some of the best future lithium prospects in Australia. If I can go to the next slide. We've just, as I talked a bit about before, putting this information, this one-stop shop for all geoscience information on the cloud has been one of our objectives in the IPO. We formed a long-term alliance with CGI, which is a global software development and platform development group. We're looking at intelligent ways that we can improve the exploration workflow cycle, and we're looking at a 4-month build in that process before we go live with our beta version somewhere around Q3, Q4. I'll go to the next slide. And the next slide. I just wanted to, I can see Tim coming in there in the screen. I just wanted to talk a bit about our exploration on our own assets. I guess we've been looking at the targets that have been generated, and we've been post-IPO, we've had those rigs testing the targets that we've got. We've got gold mineral systems in most of the targets, or almost all the targets that we've drilled to date. We put out a release about our Darlow prospect earlier last week, and this is a target that is just north of Red 5's operations. It's under about 200 meters of transported cover. There was no other reason for us to be able to look at that, and it was quite difficult to target in that region conventionally. The artificial intelligence pulled us to that area. It said that had multi-million ounce potential. We've drilled there, and in the air core at the bottom of hole, we've got gold intercept, admittedly low, one meter at 1 gram, but this is air core straight in the basement, and you don't often do that, particularly in blind drilling. We've been drilling at our Kalgoorlie prospect, Balagundi, air core there as well. Large, wide-spaced gold mineralization was intersected in our first pass drilling earlier in the year, and we've just been following up on that. The rig has just moved over to Maynards Dam, just near St Ives, with our JV with Talk Metals, Gingerlee Resources, and Lefroy. So we're in a very good, highly contested exploration area. We've got a great target there, and we're very excited about finally clearing our native title and land access and being able to get the drill rig on the ground there. If I can go to the next slide. And the next slide. And we've just finished the program at Eaglehawk. For those who know Great Boulder Resources, Mulga Bill discovery just to the north there. Our system loved Mulga Bill. We like what they're doing there as a group. We could only pick up at the time the southern part of that structure. We've just put those 3 lines across the DPT target in the dotted line outlook there. We're very excitedly waiting for the results to come back from that program. As you can see, that north-south structure has delivered some pretty exciting intercepts for Great Boulder, and we hope that that structure continues to be fertile much farther to the south. If I can just go to the last slide as well, I'll just wrap up very quickly. For SensOre, the value prospects that we've got, I guess, the results from all of our drilling. We've been very active. We did a lot of preparation before the IPO to be able to get on the ground as soon as we raised the funds earlier in the year. We have moved ahead rapidly with the development of the technology and generating revenue on our bespoke client engagements. I mentioned Barton, Deutsche Rostoff, BHP, DGO, etc. They continue to be very strong backers for the company. And a big milestone for us will be making this information all available publicly to clients and to people of interest in that area. So still moving ahead very quickly, but in a challenging market. And we think we've got some good news and very strong news flow to come. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Richard. A very challenging market, agreed. Mind you might have a potential client here. Can you talk through wondering here whether your AI-based sensors can also help discovering geothermal resources as well?
Yeah, a lot of the processes we do around geology and mapping of the deep earth crust environment, and including targeting of water, we haven't processed that capability so far to date, but it's definitely when you're organising all that geoscience information, and a lot of this technology was developed in the oil and gas space, looking for energy resources as well. There is, I guess, many applications not only in for geothermal, but also in agriculture and other areas. But we think we have our hands full with some of the best commodities to be in terms of copper, nickel, lithium, and gold.
And you effectively use your own technology. I mean, you're kind of two businesses. You've got your own technology, and then you're basically mining these tenements if they come up to scratch according to your technology. Because there is two different business models, is there a risk to your kind of capital base in terms of being a miner as well as a technology company?
Yeah, we deal with this many times in exploration and in mining, when we have two different assets that make sense to be together when you're small. And either be a gold project with a copper project, etc. When it makes sense to keep them together, and we're learning between the technology and the exploration all of the time, the synergies between those two parts of the business are value accretive to us. As we get bigger, as you mentioned, there may be a point in time where the technology and the exploration assets make sense to be pursued independently. I don't think we're there at that point, but it's something that we keep on our radar as a board and as a company about streamlining the business model. But for me, and when I talk to investors, they love the prospect of a really strong commercial technology that's generating revenue, but also that opportunity when you see a diamond in the data to be able to pick it up, polish it, and maybe get that exponential upside from a wholly owned discovery under the belt as well.
Makes perfect sense, Richard. And just one last question. Can you talk about international growth plans? There's a question here.
Definitely. The US, I was just over at PDAC. There's a lot of appetite for this. We've got clients in the US who want to use our services. We're looking at Denver in the US as a base with a very significant technology and mining complement there. We've seen Cobalt, one of our competitors there. They raised $200 million on, I believe, a plus $1 billion valuation on a business that is, I guess, very similar to ours. The appetite for technology, at least prior to the recent market change, has been very strong. But there's a lot of money still in private hands over there that could help the company in the future, and definitely beyond the US into Europe and Scandinavia, where there are great data sets, lots of activity, mining countries where we can see that technology will open up more possibilities undercover.
Thanks, Richard. Fascinating story. Good luck out there. Nice to have you back on our webinar program, and we'll follow with interest. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, next up we have Ausgold, ASX code AUC, market cap around $90 million, 1 year return of up around 2%. We have with us Matthew GreenTree, who's the managing director. Ausgold is a gold exploration and development company with a suite of projects located in some of Australia's most prospective mineral provinces. Matthew, thanks for your time. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. What we see on that front page is a photo of the main project area I'm going to talk about today, the Katanning Gold Project. And what we see there is the Jinkers Hill in the central zone. So what I'll do is I'll take you through a number of things we're doing at the moment. And if I could just go to the next 2 slides, please. Thank you. So over the last year, we've had a lot of developments within the company. Just recently, we announced a 2.16 million ounce resource at Katanning. And it's really focused around that first picture I showed you at Jinkers Hill in that central zone. Over the last year, we've added 960,000 ounces to that resource. We've done that at a very low discovery cost of $11 per resource ounce. Importantly, we've also increased the measured and indicated component of that resource, which now stands at 1.78 million ounces. So I'll show you that on a few long sections of maps just to put that into context. But what we're targeting here is a standalone operation producing more than 100,000 ounces per annum for a long life of mine. And I'll take you through why we think that that's possible. We're pretty advanced now on our pre-feasibility study, and we'll expect to see that out very shortly. Some of the things that we've been coming through this feasibility study have really highlighted the advantages of having a project that's not a remote project by any stretch of the imagination. We're located only 3.5 hour drive out of Perth to the southeast. And located in a farming community of Katanning. So it's quite a different project to a lot of the other gold projects you see around Western Australia, but it's in line with some of the discoveries we're starting to see around the southwest Yilgarn, including the Julimar discovery. So what I'll do is go to the next slide, please. I'll just take you through what the company looks like, including the management and the directors. I'm the managing director and have been with the company since 2017. I'm a geologist by background, a lot of experience in terms of exploration and development. We have a really well-qualified board. Richard Lockwood is our chairman. Dennis sits with me in Perth as a non-exec director. And Jeff Jones, Neil Ferris, and Tim Kestel's are non-exec directors. So we've got a very strong team in terms of the board. We're well financed. We've got about $12.5 million in the bank. And what I'll do is I'll show you what we're planning to do with that to increase the value of the company. So next slide, please. So where we're located is just southeast of Perth. We've got a large tenement holding around that. Because we were early movers and had that advantage, we were able to pick up a number of fairly advanced prospects around our Katanning Gold project. So although we're focused on, with our study work, a standalone operation, there's also a lot of opportunities to increase life of mine and look at discovery elsewhere in a large greenstone belt in the southwest. One of the advantages of being in a farming community is the access to infrastructure. We've got grid power to site, and we've actually seen that through our study work that we'll be able to access that for processing. So it's a real cost advantage. And as we're seeing across the world, and particularly in the East Coast in Australia, the cost of power is escalating. We're not seeing that in Western Australia by the same scale. And also having access to grid power really takes away some of the reliance on diesel or natural gas that otherwise would be a source of energy. So it's a real advantage. Having a township there as well, it really gives a lot of advantages in terms of a stable workforce. Again, that's another thing that we're seeing across a lot of projects is access to workforce. So one of the things we've seen with this study is that advantage playing out through some of the costs we're seeing coming into the development of the project. Could you take me to the next slide, please? We've been obviously working up a number of the aspects of the Katanning Gold project, and what we're seeing is the things such as metallurgy are excellent. We've seen that there's a coarse gold component in here that we see up to 69% recovery out of coarse gravity. And that really lowers the cost in terms of processing. It's a very straightforward CR processing flow sheet that we're presenting. We're looking at a 3 million tonne per annum plant on site there. And that's where we see that our 100,000 ounce target for this feasibility study per annum. So it's a very simple, well-trodden path, and I think that's something that you want to see out of any gold project, is that there's no complexity here. It's a very straightforward, simple flow sheet. Next slide, please. So what we've got in store for the next 6 months or so is we're working on the feasibility study at the moment. Very shortly, you'll see that maiden ore reserve come out. Following that work, we've got a number of other studies ready to start. There'll be further optimization work around the plant and the metallurgy, and any potential scaling that we can do on that. And looking to take that through to definitive studies late this year and early next year. Alongside that, we've got some baseline environmental studies that we've completed, but also further work underway, and working in with the community consultation in the approvals process. We're doing that in parallel with the definitive studies to ensure that we can deliver the project in a reasonable amount of time. Alongside that, we've got ambitions for further resource growth. We've committed to doing a substantial RC and diamond program in extensions to the main resource areas, and I can show you some of the work we've already completed. We've got results pending on some of that recent RC drilling, but we have a diamond rig on site at the moment, targeting some of what we think is extensions at depth of the current resource. We've also got a number of other regional targets that we've been following up on, and some of those are co-funded by the state government's EIS drilling co-funding agreement. So that's fantastic. A scheme that enables us to target some of these conceptual targets at a relatively low cost. So if you could take me to the next slide, please. For those who are unfamiliar with the project, it's a large geochemical anomaly extending over 17 kilometres along a very large crustal scale fault. And that's important because that enables us to look at a very large scale mineralised system. In this image here, you can see on the slide, it's a aeromagnetic image with the golden soil shown near surface there. And you can see that very long trend of gold mineralisation. What we're focused on is really what we call the central zone in this study, although we have included some of the resource at the Dingo area to the south there. So really the study is looking at that 2 million ounces coming out of that central zone. So could we go to the next slide, please? So looking at our current resource position there, you can see dominantly that central zone, so centered around the Jinkers Hill, which is that first slide I showed you. There's been some absolutely sensational grades intercepted in drilling throughout the project's history and in some of our recent drilling. We've also been completing drilling in that area just above the legend to the block model on the top right-hand side there, just under the Jackson label there. And that's really looking at extensions to potential underground. Most of the drilling here has been really focused in at that top 150 metres. So really looking at open pit resource. And that's the focus of the PFS. We're not considering any underground options at this stage. We're really looking at producing that 100,000 ounces per annum for a long life of mine, purely from an open cut perspective. For the future, though, we see there's opportunities for obtaining high-grade material at depth, and that's what we're testing with some of our new drilling there, which is well supported by downhole EM. It's a geophysics technique that we know works very well for this deposit. Although it's slightly novel, it's been used by companies such as Bellevue to target their underground resources there. You can see in the long section just below that grade one is showing the measured indicated resources, and the red and yellow there indicates those measured indicated areas that will be included in our maiden ore reserve. So good portion of our resource sits in that category, a lot of high confidence material, and it's exciting times as we're starting to commercialize that and putting around some engineering numbers and looking at what this project can deliver. So the next slide, please. What the deposit looks like in section is it's a series of folds. So for the geologists out there, the lodes are folded in on themselves, and that's why we've got these very high grade shoots. There's a number of these folds, and in between those, there's mineralization. But what we target with our drilling is those folded positions which respond well to downhole EM and have those very high grade and the bonanza grades that we're searching for. So that will be part of what we look for as this underground target. So next slide, please. I've mentioned this underground targets. At the moment, we're reporting a small underground resource there. We're looking to expand that throughout the year, and really that's something we'll look at in the future for that potential. But if we keep moving on to the next slide, please. What I'll briefly talk about is what we call the southern zone. At the moment, we have 220,000 ounces at the Dingo resource. We think that's got room to expand both to the north in an area called the Rifle Range. Next slide, please. And way to the south, where we have over 8 kilometres of strike length, shown in that map image there, with the red contour, which is 0.1 gram gold in air core drilling. We've got a substantial strike length there. There's a lot of work to be done there, and we'll see results coming through over the summer months as we really get into that through our field season. But you can see from the previous drilling there over the last 6 months or so, really some sensational results from that Dingo resource, and there's a lot of room to grow that, which at the moment only represents a small percentage of that total 2 million ounce resource. Could we keep going, please? Next slide. Just briefly, we've got a large regional position. We've got a number of advanced prospects around the Katanning Gold Project. We're really looking at that central zone as a standalone, but for the future, you can see places like Nanakup Ridge, Bullet Pool, our Buron prospect, that Data Tine have all got opportunities to add resource along and increase that life of mine. Next slide, please. And likewise, across our larger tenement position, we recently acquired through a farming agreement the Stanley joint venture project on our northeast there. Next slide, which really connects in just that area. You can see there's some absolutely sensational results there, including 8.5 meters at 33 grams. It's pre-resource, but has the opportunity to deliver some very high-grade, shallow, near-surface resource. And that Duggan resource just to the to the northeast there is recent drillings intercepted some very high grades as well, including 7 meters at 4 grams. So there's an opportunity there to target some of our regional prospects to add to our Katanning Gold Project. So next slide, please. So just to wrap up, we've already established a very large resource position. We're undertaking studies work at the moment, and that's to come out very shortly. What you'll see from that is a large operation producing more than 100,000 ounces per annum. That's a 3 million tonne per annum plant that we'll have on site. It's drawing power off the grid. That gives us some advantages. There's obviously cheap energy. There's recently been established the wind farm at Kojonup, so there's some opportunities to leverage off those ESG credentials from that. What we're also doing now is further expanding our resource beyond what we see here. And we've got potential for other metals beyond gold, including PGEs, because we're in very similar terrains to the Julimar discovery. So thanks for your time today. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, quite a few questions coming through. Now, it's kind of well documented in WA at the moment. It's hard to get skilled workers. Can you talk through how you're balancing that and what it's like to get a drill rig, how busy it is out there, and how limited is it in regards to getting employees?
Yeah, look, it's I guess the obvious thing that we see is getting good turnaround on our assays. We've probably got about 6,000 or 7,000 meters of RC drilling sitting out there with assays pending. There's nothing you can really do about it. You just have to accept that's going to take a bit longer to get your answers. In terms of skilled labour, we've been very fortunate. I think in terms of the exploration team, we've got some guys who have come on board who are very excited, very passionate about the geology. It's a very exciting project in that regard. So that enthusiasm is quite contagious and enables you to, I guess, be a bit luckier with who comes on board as a junior. So, you know, the junior sector always suffers from probably less resources than some of the bigger companies, but I think the excitement around the project and that enthusiasm from the team has really sort of counteracted that. I've been building up a studies team and recently just put on an environmental and stakeholder manager. And it's really, again, it's, I guess, the excitement around the projects and the uniqueness of this project has attracted people to it, which I think is a great thing to see externally as well, not just as the managing director.
And how large do you think Tanning could actually get to?
Look, we've got 2 million ounces in resource at the moment. The scale of the gold anomalism in the belt that we're exploring at the moment, so really looking at that central and southern zone, I think has got an easy target to 3 to 5 million ounces. So we're really just touching the tip of the iceberg at the moment. And as I alluded to, there's a number of targets along the other trends outside this belt that have some very high-grade mineralization. We've really been focused on that central zone to deliver the reserve position that we're working on at the moment. But we also recognise, and that you can see from the way we've been consistent with our exploration and our expenditure on that work, is that this is a much larger project. And I guess if I was looking for companies to invest in, I'd see Ausgold as probably an earlier version of De Grey with the Hemi discovery. That, you know, they had a large resource position prior to the discovery of Hemi, but that consistent, good technical work, it delivers some absolutely fantastic results for shareholders.
On that note, we're out of time, but thanks for your time, Matthew. Have a nice weekend, and we'll follow with interest. That's a big resource and a big story. We've got some follow-up questions. I'll shoot them through to you over the weekend.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Next up, we have Culpeo Minerals, ASX code CPO, market cap of around $12 million. I believe it's newly listed. We have with us Max Tuesley. The company is a copper exploration and developed company focusing in Chile, the world's #1 copper producer. Max, thanks for your time. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tim, and thanks everyone for tuning in. You know, pretty happy to be part of this webinar today. Some very exciting presentations that I've had a chance to listen to there, and you know, I'm here to give everyone an update on Culpeo. I'll run through the company and our philosophy and focus. I'll run through just a summary of some of the latest news and give everyone an overview of our 3 main projects in Chile. So hopefully everyone will see where we are and you know, what lies ahead for us. It's pretty exciting times for us. If we can go to the next slide. Just your normal disclaimer there, and yeah, look, we're focused in Chile, obviously, as Tim mentioned. You know, the #1 copper producer in the world, a pretty amazing place to explore for copper. A lot of opportunities for a company like ourselves to find you know, sort of medium-sized, high-grade copper deposit, and that's certainly what we're looking for. Chile is an advanced country, a lot of infrastructure. We're focusing on the coastal belt, low altitude, and obviously in an area that's pretty well endowed with you know, previous discoveries, some very nice ore bodies in the vicinity of our main projects. 3 projects in Chile, Lana Karina, Las Patacas and Quelon, all of which are extremely underexplored, very prospective for copper. Recently, we've announced to the market some of the drilling results from Lana Karina. We've had a lot of success there in the first 5 holes. You can see some of the numbers that we've generated there. Very wide intercepts, very good grade, and it pretty much open both along strike and at depth. So I'll go into a bit more detail in the next couple of slides on Lana Karina. Next slide. Just a quick snapshot of the company, currently trading at 22 cents, market cap of approximately 12 million. At the end of March, we had a reasonable treasury there to enable us to complete the current drilling program and move into the phase 2 drilling program, which will happen in the 3rd quarter. A good spread of shareholders, a lot of input from the board and management in the share structure, and a very supportive broker partner with the PAC partners. Next slide, please. Look, the 3 main projects that we'll discuss today are Lana Karina, which is situated about 300 kilometres north of Santiago. Las Patacas, which is a little bit further to the north, about 700 kilometres north of Santiago, and close to a town by the name of Culpeo. And our 3rd project, Quelon, which is very close to Lana Karina. So we'll cover all of those 3 projects in this presentation. Next slide. So look, we'll start with Lana Karina. That's where we're drilling at the moment. Lana Karina has historic production, mainly from underground, of about 1 million tonne. Some very decent grades coming out of the underground, 1.5 to 2.5% copper. The project itself is a series of high-grade breccia pipes that outcrop at the surface, and that system of breccia pipes is then underlain by a more of a porphyry style intrusive copper system at depth, which, as you probably heard from some of the recent results, is getting pretty exciting as we drill sort of some of the deeper sections of that lowest part of the ore body. We're starting to see some significant molybdenum values associated with the copper at depth as well. So that system is certainly appears to be getting bigger as we explore the project with this current drilling program. So we were attracted to the project based on some of that historic information that was available, obviously the high-grade underground mining that had taken place, but also some of the historic drilling that the previous explorers had returned. You can see some of the numbers there: 70 metres at 1.23% copper, 154 metres at 0.7. So some reasonable copper grades, plus also substantial molybdenum associated with the copper. Our current drilling program at Lana Karina, we're seeing probably better numbers. We're seeing some better grades, and we're seeing some exceptionally wide intercepts from the drilling. So just a summary there of the first 5 holes that have come back from the drilling program. 104 metres at 0.74, a very wide intercept of 257 metres at 0.95, plus 81 ppm moly. And then recently, some higher grade numbers coming out from the northern part of the system: 173 metres at 1.05 and just under 100 metres at 1.06. All of the copper with moly credits. So some pretty big numbers coming out of the drilling program. We've got a 9-hole drilling program planned, so another 4 holes at least to be returned from the laboratory once drilling's complete. The other exciting thing, obviously, is the recent ground magnetic survey that we undertook at the project. That's identified 13 additional breccia / porphyry targets on the property. If we can go to the next slide. just to give people a bit of a visual sort of idea of what this mineralisation looks like. This is a little bit different to your typical low-grade porphyry style mineralisation. This mineralisation is very much chalcopite dominant. The mineralisation can be in vein fill. It can be associated with the breccia matrix of the breccia pipes, and it's also present as just coarse grain disseminations in the rock itself. So it's a slightly different beast to some of the other porphyries that people might be familiar with. We're also seeing potentially a magmatic influence on the mineralisation, as well as your typical hydrothermal style porphyry alteration system. Next slide. So this week, actually, on Monday this week, we released the announcement about hole number 5. Now, this is a pretty exciting hole for us, as it was drilled on the northwest side of the main Lana breccia pipe that was known about. And luckily, we've intercepted a breccia pipe that sits sort of adjacent to Lana. The breccia pipe itself does not outcrop on the surface, but it is in an area where that geophysical survey did highlight the potential for mineralisation, and certainly the drill hole has proven that. So we saw some breccia style mineralisation close to the surface in hole 5, some pretty reasonable grades coming out of that area, 49 metres at 0.83% copper, and then we also drilled into the lower sort of more porphyry style mineralisation in that particular hole, and that was the 81 metres at 1.06% copper. Just a visual there on the left-hand side of the slide, just showing some of that breccia mineralisation that we did intersect in hole 5. That particular part of the intersection was quite high grade, 2.75% copper over a metre there in the core. So very very exciting for us to start to find these additional breccia pipes, and obviously that's given us the ability to sort of widen that footprint of mineralisation at Lana Karina. Can we go to the next slide? Just to highlight sort of the regional opportunities that we see at Lana Karina. Obviously, as I mentioned, 13 high priority targets identified from the ground mag. The alteration that's associated with the copper and moly mineralisation is magnetite destructive. This is quite typical in these porphyry environments. So we were particularly looking for areas that were magnetic lows in that ground magnetic data, and that's how we generated those 13 targets. Working with our geophysical consultants. They also are coincident with some of the historic surface geochemistry as well. So that gives us a bit of confidence that these targets are associated with copper mineralisation. So we intend to drill those in the next couple of months. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview of Las Patacas. Las Patacas is a bit further north, as I mentioned. That's a pretty exciting project, just located 12 kilometres south of the very large Candelaria mine. We've had some drilling success there earlier in the year, and we will be going back there later in the year to drill some of the IOCG targets that we've defined from the ground magnetic survey. Next slide, please. That's just an overview of those ground mag targets. There's some pretty exciting sort of large magnetic highs. Obviously, the IOCGs are associated with magnetite alteration. So, as I mentioned, we have 1,500 metres of drilling planned there at Las Patacas later in the year. And finally, if we can just go to the next slide. Our Quelon project, we've been doing geophysics and sort of mapping and geochemistry down there over the last few months, where we've got a pretty exciting IOCG target on the property. It's a coincidental sort of geochem ground mag feature, and also we have an IP response over that area as well. If we can go to the next slide. You can see the Quelon project has about 10 kilometres of outcropping mineralisation present on the property, and as I mentioned, we've got this pretty exciting sort of large-scale geophysical anomaly at the Anico prospect. We've just finished the mapping, as I mentioned. So, after the first round of drilling at Lana Karina, we'll probably take the drill rig down to Quelon and test some of these targets. Next slide. Just a quick overview of what we're planning to do. Obviously, we want to move into the phase 2 drilling at Lana Karina in the third quarter, finish the mapping at Quelon and start some drilling down there. And for Las Patacas, as I said, up there drilling those IOCG targets later in the year. That's about it, Tim.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for your time. Interesting story. A couple of questions here. What effect will the recent change of government have on your project, if any?
Yeah, look, Tim. We've seen business as usual in Chile. In fact, I think coming out of the pandemic, Chile really has started to sort of take off. We're seeing a lot of sort of recent investment in Chile over most of the sectors, even outside of mining. So I think everyone who's operating in Chile is pretty confident that the new government is not going to be an issue. They are working on rewriting the constitution, and we've seen there was some social media sort of concerns about nationalisation of mining and things like that. I can confirm that none of those ideas that were put forward to be voted on in the new constitution have eventuated. They've all been sort of voted down. So that's not going to be a part of the new constitution. And I really think some of the socio-economic things that the Chilean government want to achieve, they must consider that the golden goose is mining. And I think a lot of the things that they do want to achieve for the people of Chile obviously have to be funded from somewhere, and that's going to be the mining sector.
Thanks, Max. And copper, along with kind of a lot of the other EV battery minerals, has had some weakness recently. I mean, it's had an extraordinary run as well. What's your kind of view on the copper price outlook?
Look, I think, obviously I think that, before the last couple of weeks, copper was, trading around $10,000 a tonne US. It has dropped back, as you mentioned, but I think the fundamentals are so strong for copper, it's unbelievable. I mean, the main component of all these electric vehicles is copper. It's some of the elements are obviously very important, but copper is the main component. And obviously, the infrastructure that you need to ensure this transition to this the green energy way of life. The infrastructure is very copper dominated, so I see a lot of upside in the copper price. I know we're going through a bit of a downturn at the moment, but I don't think it'll be very long, and it'll be up over 10,000 a tonne again.
And just a final question, would you anticipate a straightforward small open pit start, followed by kind of underground to where the mineralisation gets richer and deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this project outcrops. We haven't got as far as sort of wrapping numbers around a resource yet. Obviously, we need to do a bit more drilling, but certainly this project is amenable to open cut style mining. Probably to a depth of at least 200 metres, possibly 300 metres, given the geometry of the ore body, and I also think, you know, with some of these grades that we're seeing at depth, there very much is a possibility that this ore body would be economic to mine underground once we exhausted the open cut resource.
Great, Max. That's all we have time for Friday afternoon. Thank you for your time. We'll follow the story with interest and get you back on later in the year.
Thanks very much, Tim.
Thanks, everyone. A cracker webinar, record audience. Thanks for your time. Have a nice week.